Martyn Lewis for the latest Gulf news.
British military sources now say that the Iraqi incursion into the town of Khafji was only a part of a large-scale attempt by Saddam Hussein's troops to invade Saudi Arabia. But the Allied response, pounding the invaders with artillery and airstrikes, stopped and scattered them. The number of Iraqis killed in the Khafji operation is now put at 30, with 500 taken prisoner. 15 Allied soldiers from the Saudi and Qatari forces also died in the battle. Other developments today: Baghdad radio says Allied airmen have caused civilian casualties and therefore should be treated as war criminals. The Americans have confirmed that one of their AC-130 planes has crashed behind Iraqi lines. All 14 crew members are missing. Iran has sent medical aid to Iraq under the supervision of the International Red Cross. And there have been raids on the Iraqi towns of Fao, Abu Khasib and Azubair, as fair weather has allowed bombing and reconnaissance missions to be stepped up. The Iraqi attempt to take Khafji was called a military disaster by the commander of the British troops in the Gulf, Sir Peter de la Billière. Tonight, Saudi forces are patrolling the town after a day of sporadic sniper fire.
This is as far as Iraqi armour got in their deepest thrust into Saudi Arabia. It's the municipal boundary of Khafji town, about 12 miles south of the occupied Kuwait border. They entered as Saddam's conquerors and hung on for 30 hours of carnage before hundreds surrendered to the Allied repulse force. For political reasons, the counterattack was by Arab coalition troops, principally Saudi and Qatari. Ahead of these Allied forces lay a column of Iraqi T-55s, elderly but potent tanks with armoured carriers in support and about 700 infantry. Iraqi snipers hid out in Khafji's water supply tower. They've remained active today, 24 hours after the main force collapsed. By 8:30 this morning, the last of the snipers were being hunted down. Once again, the Saudis were in control of their own town. Fears of a massive Iraqi attack all along this section of the northern front hadn't materialised. The Allies had begun by saying this was only a small battle. Now it was described as important. 30 Iraqi troops were killed in Khafji. That's about double the Arab coalition fatalities. The bodies of 4 Saudi soldiers are still inside this wreck. On this street, 7 Iraqi armoured vehicles were abandoned by their crews. These are the latest pictures from the road to Khafji, Allied reinforcements rolling north. In Khafji, the Iraqis showed they aren't mesmerised by the massive Allied build-up, but this was an act of self-destruction obeying Saddam's orders. Politically, it will gain him further respect among much Arab public opinion. Militarily, it reveals the Iraqis have a potentially fatal lack of intelligence about Allied deployments. Brian Barron, BBC News, Eastern Saudi Arabia.
The United States Navy has begun assessing information from Iraqi prisoners of war captured in the past 2 days. Recent attacks on the Iraqi Navy have been hailed as a source of quiet elation by the commander of the British naval forces.
These Iraqi prisoners of war, now on board an American frigate, were plucked from the waters of the Gulf, survivors of the naval actions of the past few days. Allied commanders say 60 Iraqi vessels have been destroyed since the war began. Officers said the prisoners had been blindfolded for security reasons. Military officials insist that, unlike Allied prisoners in Baghdad, the Iraqis are not being paraded for the cameras.
The prisoners are being treated in accordance with the Geneva Convention, and there's no attempt to parade them before your cameras. We allowed you the opportunity from a distance to take some photography because we thought that was appropriate to document that we were humanely treating these people. And in fact, we saved them from a certain death tonight.
All the prisoners are being interrogated, although they're said to have had little information to impart. They were seemingly ignorant of significant details of the war raging around them. Debris litters the Gulf in the aftermath of the naval engagements. Here, the remains of an Iraqi fast patrol boat, unused life jackets and a life raft floated nearby. And above this oil platform, destroyed in an air attack, Iraqi survivors are winched to safety on board an American helicopter. Lynx helicopters from HMS Gloucester were involved in hunting down the Iraqi patrol boats. On this flight, the crew locked onto an Iraqi ship and managed to fire Sea Skewer missiles just as the Iraqi radar locked onto them. The boat was later confirmed as destroyed.
The Prime Minister, John Major, has said Saddam Hussein is clearly losing the war. He called the Iraqi incursion into Khafji a rather desperate ploy. In an interview broadcast to British forces, he promised that troops would not remain in the Gulf a day longer than necessary. And he had this message for them.
If they were here, they could tangibly feel the support there is for them and what they're doing, and the magnificent way they're doing it in every section and every corner of this country at the present moment. It is so tangible, you can actually feel that support.
I'll be back with more news on the Gulf on BBC One at 20 to 2.